Ben, can I recommend that you get it farther away from the edge if somebody walks by there?
I'll tell them I got it back as far as I can get it. I'll keep an eye on it. If it falls, it falls. I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
Can I just close your lid and plug this in on top of it, or do you want to take it? So we're not using a microphone. I need your power. And you got your quick lid. Okay, so I'm just going to take this now. I will stay and have yours all protected. Okay. There goes that. Very good.
There are a lot of things and that case really caused a lot of problems.
There's
What's
that.
interesting is that they haven't gone back to any of the DNA stuff.
I'm going to go now. Your clicker. Where do I grab the clicker? I thought I had my own, but as I got here, I didn't. Take that one. There. Okay. I'm ready to test it. Hold on, let me turn the turn this on. Okay, if you want to give it a run. There it is. So we'll go back. Perfect. And we'll just test to make sure I got my internet connection.
These guys are desperate. It's they work for state things, but they can make everything themselves with their own little nation. So they've had, yeah. I think I tried to help this guy with them years ago, but it was one of those deals where their IT people or our IT people had dumped so much money into their thing that it was like, we're not bailing on it right now, but hopefully they're ready to bail on it. So it's like, so what do they do? You know, with the state control, they've got offices in so many different areas. And then one of their districts, that was the one main. The main owner that they use mostly on a paper system. So on paper, they try to put something in stuff. So there's no like shroud type.
All right.
Because there's no consistency.
We still have a few people coming in, so we'll give them a minute.
Are you gonna leave like first? Yeah.
Nobody's changed the keys. She does have a tree limb though.
Oh, careful, Joe, don't trip.
Tree limb.
Am I supposed to use that? I don't mind. Were you using it? Well, let's do this. So for you in the back row, are you able to hear me all right? Should I use the mic? I think I'll be all right without the mic. Nobody's ever said that my voice is too soft. So I think we'll be all right. What was for lunch yesterday? Pizza. Soup. I've never done pizza. I like Subway better. I don't know. I will say, is there anybody local from around here? Like you eat at a lot of the local establishments? I eat at a place, a breakfast place, like in between when I talked this morning and now. It's called Snooze. They make like the best pancakes I've literally. It's the best pancake I've ever eaten in my life. Have you heard of that? Oh my goodness, I went there and I felt bad actually by bringing Subway. If I could change it up, I brought pancakes back for everybody. You'd be eating lemon poppy seed pancakes. I've seen that. Yep. So if it helps you while you're eating your club sandwich, I had a lemon poppy seed with some sort of a lemon glaze all over the top of it. It had whipped cream and butter. Yeah. Believe me, Subway really didn't sound good in comparison to that. So if you have time, it's only like 5 minutes from here. It's called Snooze. Snooze AM or something. They're paying me nothing for that plug, by the way. My wife, I brought my family. I'm from Cincinnati, and so I had to go to Omaha and Des Moines, and so we all drove here, and so we all went there this morning, and it was, she's on Yelp. She's big on Yelp, so she found it on Yelp, and they said, like, these are the world's best pancakes ever. By the way, I'm just filling time. This is not my presentation, so I'm just waiting for people to get in, plugging local establishments.
How about the hotel you stayed at?
Yeah, let's not talk about that. That didn't work out so well. I'm big into Priceline. I like to go on and do Priceline. I very rarely have a problem with that because typically a 3-star is a particular type. Well, apparently in Fort Collins, Best Western's a 3-star. I do not believe that. I should just go on with Joe. Stay at the Hampton Inn. You know what you get every time. How long did it take to get pizza and get it in an hour? Is it slower than this or faster? About the same? Okay. Next time I'll just bring it all up here and just start throwing it at everybody, and yeah, we'll do it that way. Well, a lot of the rooms we do this in, there's actually a door at both ends, so you can actually go from one to the other. This isn't quite conducive to that, so, but that's all right. How many more do we have out behind you? Is there a lot? 10 or so? Okay, 1 minute. The last person will love it. As soon as I see the last person stop in, I'm going to start. So for how many of you here, this is your first IAPE property class? This is the first one you've ever been to? Okay, that's a big number. I do know that this class is particularly one of his better well-attended classes, so. All right, well, I know people are creeping in, so I've got an awful lot of information I want to get through in the next 45 minutes. At noon, Joe's going to give me the hook, even if I'm in the middle of a statement. So I want to make sure I get through all the things that we need to get through today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with a very quick background on myself. I'm going to talk a little bit about our company. I'm going to give you a 30-second history of property and evidence software, and then we're going to spend the bulk of our time in a product that no other IAPE class, in fact, very few people have seen what you're about to see here today. I hope you like what you're about to see. All right, so first of all, me. One of my guys doctored that up. It looks a lot better than it really is in life. My name is Ben Townsend. I'm with Tracker Products. We're based just south of Cincinnati in northern Kentucky. So we are, in fact, I can tell you, we're 1,348 miles from where I'm at because I drove all 1,348 miles via Omaha to get here. I've been doing this for almost 10 years now, developing property and evidence software. I've been doing these classes with Joe for every bit of 8 years now. This may be my 200th presentation I've given, albeit today is going to be very different than any one that I've ever done. I've managed over 300 implementations of our product, and I primarily work with our larger federal agencies. You know, way back in the day, I dealt with a lot of the smaller PDs. We have a lot of large federal clients that I work with, so that typically takes up the bulk of my time. All right, so what is Tracker? All right, Tracker, in fact, let me kind of split it up. There's Tracker prior to what you're about to see today, which is our last 10 years, and then I'm going to show you where we're going forward. Okay, so for our last 10 years, we are like many other property and evidence vendor systems that are out there. We do barcoding, we do chain of custody, we do inventories. We do many of the things that you probably are already doing with whatever property and evidence system you're using. Okay. So kind of as we go along, we do barcoding. I don't know that I'll show you generating a barcode today, but I'll concede. Everybody that does property and evidence software, they do barcoding, okay? Everybody does chain of custody, tracking chain of custody. We're going to talk about digital, physical and digital evidence today. I'm going to show you how we track digital evidence within our software, okay? So let's do this. Let me give you a 30-second overview of the history of property and evidence, okay? For the first however many eons there were dinosaurs, there was Joe Lotta in Burbank, and there was pen and paper, okay? That was Joe heard that, good. I've known Joe for a long time. He ribs me, I get to rib him a little bit. So for however many hundreds of years that existed, you had pen and paper, okay? About 20 years ago, the first, maybe even a little more than 20 years ago, the first evidence tracking software product came along that did barcoding, okay? For the last 20 years, that's pretty much what you've seen. So if you went out and looked at any one of what is our competitors or even looked at our product, I could tell you I think that our product is a little bit different in the way that it operates. But when all is said and done with, you may very well be splitting hairs between us and everybody else. Now, I think pricing is going to be a big deal to that. Ours is a cloud-based product. So about 10 years ago when we came along, we were the first to introduce this concept. Well, we didn't introduce cloud software. I mean, that had been around for a long time. But we were the first one to come out with property and evidence and say, we have a cloud-based system. The only reason we even got into it to begin with is because when one of our PDs we were working with, we were a design company, one of our local PDs said, can you go find us something? We started going out and looking at all the competitors that were out there. We couldn't find anything we liked, and we came up with this brilliant idea that we will build you something better than what you can get out there. Now, the idea was we were going to build this system for this one PD and be done with it. Well, that was 10 years ago. This is what we do as a company. It's sort of, when we got into it, we were like, holy cow, nobody's doing browser-based applications. And so we developed this browser-based application. We threw it out there, and some 10 years later now, we have some 1,000 implementations of our product between different agencies. We have really large agencies using our product. We have really small ones, and we've been doing this for about 10 years. Okay? What I'm going to show you today, I believe, is a very sharp line between the way it's been for the last 20 years and the way it's going to be going forward. And I'm going to tell you in a little bit of a story and how it relates to a particular PD. Okay? So who do we serve? Just a real quick overview. We serve all kinds of agencies. Now, I want to make sure you understand that just because somebody puts one of their logos on their website and says, I work with the Department of Justice, you could be working with one person in one building somewhere and all of a sudden you're working with the Department of Justice. All right? Some of our implementations of our product are nationwide implementations. With browser-based applications, you can think at a much larger level like that. So Health and Human Services, Department of Defense, OIG, they've got thousands of users all over the country. They've got 75 offices. So when you think about your evidence situation, and my room's a mess, and I hate doing this, okay, they're dealing with that times 75 or times 100, and they're doing it all over the country. Okay? So we work with some really large agencies, but don't think that we don't work with a lot of smaller agencies, because the bulk of all of our agencies are under 50 officers. Okay? Now, specifically, some of the PDs we deal with, and I'm going to highlight Omaha Police Department here today. We do work with the St. Louis PD, the Boston PD, and the Omaha PD. Now, one thing that I will tell you is a very stark difference between how we work with these agencies and how maybe one of our competitors would work with a similar-sized agency. We don't just work with one person in the evidence room, or even in the case of Boston. There's not just 10 people in the evidence room using our software. It's typically everybody in the entire agency. Every one of their officers will enter their evidence. Anybody that touches evidence, and in many cases the courts, the DA's office, the crime labs, if you touch evidence for one of these PDs, odds are you're logging into the product and having some sort of an interaction with that. And that's very important for where we're about to go. But let's focus on the Omaha PD for just a minute. All right? About a year ago, I was invited out to Omaha. Now, Omaha is one of our larger clients. The guy really knows what he's doing. When I went out to Omaha about a year ago, he had 1,200 different people logging into his software. Anybody that called him on the phone, the guy that ran the evidence room, if anybody called him up and said, hey, I need to know what's going on with that case. I need to know where those items are at. Can you tell me this? Can you tell me that? They would always get the same answer. Hey, I got really, really good news for you. I'm going to give you a log into my software. I want you to log in and you can do this yourself. Okay? So even the U.S. Marshal's office, they call him up and try to get gun reports from him. He's like, I'll tell you what, I'll build you a gun report in the software. Whenever you want it, you log in, you go get it. Okay? Now that's all well and good. He had about 1,200 people logging into his product when I went out there a year ago. And he brought me out because he asked a very interesting question that I thought I had a very good answer to. He said, Ben, I've got 1,200 people logging into my software, but I also work with the sheriff's office. I also work with the DA's office. I even give them my evidence many times. The problem is I give them my evidence and then it sort of goes into oblivion. Can anybody recognize that? Okay, I'm giving somebody evidence. My software tells me I just checked it out to that guy, but what happens after you check it out to him? Gone. Okay? Now, you would want to believe, yes, they've got it. I understand it's over there. I've got my get out of jail free card. I know I gave it to him. There's his signature. But evidence, and I don't believe this anymore, is now just inside your building. Evidence moves all over. You correspond with other agencies. I think the advent of all software is going to be people operating on a much larger scale. Let's bring in Leads Online into that discussion. For those of you that know what Leads Online is. Okay? Actually, let me give you a quick explanation for those of you who've never heard of Leads Online. Okay? Every pawn shop in the entire country is required to submit pawn data into a system. Leads Online, I don't even know how they pulled this off. They somehow have the corner on this to where they collect every piece of pawn material that's ever pawned out and it goes into their system. So the way departments are solving crime is they're logging into this system. It's free for them. The pawns pay to get, or actually it's cost the PD, it's free for the pawnbrokers. Okay? They log in and they can find any piece of anything pawned anywhere in the country. So if you have a driver's license of a guy and he sold, if you're in Omaha and he sold something in New York and you run his driver's license, you'll see that pawned material in New York. Okay? They're not just solving property crime, they're literally solving murders. I don't know if you've ever heard of any of the things they throw out there, but they're solving murder with this stuff, okay? The world we live in is this big now, okay? It's not your building anymore. Now, many people operate, this is my little building, this is my evidence room, as long as I got my get-out-of-jail-free card, I've got no problem, okay? The world's much bigger than that, okay? And I think we're about to take people into that world of something much larger than that. So here's what Omaha says. He says, I want to be able to interact with the other PDs around me. When I give them evidence, I want to see where that evidence goes. He says, they're logging into my software right now, but the problem is they're not operating their own organization, if you will. Okay? They see my evidence, but they're not operating within Tracker either, and it leaves me where I give somebody this evidence, I don't know where it goes. So I go out to Omaha and I think, man, I've got the answer for him. Let's just have everybody log into Omaha's system. They can operate their own evidence room from that way. Okay? That was great right up until the point that he said, I don't want to give up any control of my system. Okay? I like the way I'm doing my stuff. I want these people to interact with us, but I'm not going to give up any control of my software at all. And I thought, that's going to be a little bit of a problem. How do I have everybody logging into his system? As soon as you start bringing people in, everybody wants their own opinions, their own things. Okay? So that afternoon, I'm not joking, I meet with 4 different agencies in the area. That night, I was like, I got a problem. I cannot present to them what I thought I was going to present. Okay? That night, sort of this new product that we've come out with called SAFE was invented. Okay? It is the concept of everybody having their own software, but being able to interact with each other now. So I'm talking about when evidence is checked out of your facility, it's checked into their system, and it doesn't show checked out in your system anymore. What's it say? It's on their shelf in their room. Okay? One of the classic scenarios from Omaha was I've got all these attorneys that want to look at my evidence. Okay? Up until then, they were doing that because he had licenses available for them. Okay? But they were logging in and using his licenses. He didn't pay for that. They weren't tracking their own evidence. In fact, I found out how deplorable their evidence tracking was. If they got their own tracker system and they could work with each other, it's one large system and everybody communicating with each other. So for the past year, what we did, our old product would not do this, okay? It's like many of the software products that are out here now. In order to get to point B down the road, you have to start over. Now for a software vendor, that's a very difficult thing to do, to say, I'm going to stop developing that and I'm going to start developing a new thing. We've spent the last year doing nothing but developing what I'm about to show to you here today. So this is a brand new thing. Nobody's ever seen it. Let me go ahead and hop into this and start showing you some of what I'm looking at. Now I know I threw a lot of things out there. It may not make a lot of sense. I'm going to show you how it's going to work, and then maybe that'll kick in and you'll be like, ah, now I see what he's talking about. Okay, so here we are. This is I'm about to log into our software. Okay, so everybody that would ever log into the system is going to have their own username and password, and you would pretty well expect that. So I'm going to log in with my own account. It's an administrative account, and I'm going to log in. And then when we log in, we're going to stop right here on this main screen and we're going to talk about this. while I think this system is going to do a lot of stuff for you that's going to be really needed, this is the best part right here that you're seeing on this screen. Okay, this is a dashboard. Most products that are built today have a dashboard, except probably your property and evidence system. Okay, when you log in, you can see all sorts of information about stuff that is in your room. Okay? And every other system that is out there, including our old product, you could get all of this information, but you had to go dig for the information. You had to go run reports. Okay? So what I have on here are widgets that I have built. And these are widgets you can build. The concept of a dashboard is very simply this. You have information on your screen that is relevant to you. Other people have information that's relevant to them. I would not submit to you, if you look at the currency stats over on the right-hand side, that your officers need or care about how much, well, they may care how much currency is sitting in your room, but that's typically not relevant to them. But for you, is that not relevant? How much money is sitting in the room right now? How much has come in the last 30 days? As a matter of fact, if Joe Lotta were to come audit your room, and he would say, here's 100 questions I need you to answer, how long would it take you to go get those answers? Okay? So these are just some of the widgets that I've built on here. I'm actually going to do some things that are going to manipulate these numbers, and you can see how they build up. All right? So let's go in. In fact, you can see right now, does everybody agree, at this point, I have 11,525 total dollars in this system, 10,525 of it is checked in. Does anybody disagree with those numbers that I just read off? I want to make sure you understand this, all right? So what we're going to do now is I'm going to go up here and we're going to build a new case with a couple of items in it. I'm just going to show you something very basic. What I'm about to show you is not to show off how you enter an item. It's not that big of a deal. I want to show you how people entering items are going to affect what you see on this screen. So we're going to go in and we're going to build a new case, and I'm going to call this case IAPE 1234. All right? What is the type of offense? This is a basic web dashboard. Who is my, now I have Joe Lotta in here as a user, so I'm going to make him my case officer. The offense location, I'm going to go with this. Notice how it's bouncing off Google. You know how in most web systems now when you start typing an address out, it bounces it off Google Maps now, so now you can just look down there. Okay, Graves Avenue in Erlanger, that's the address I want. We can take that information, put it up on a map now. Okay, so those are cool things you get with it. With that, here's the offense date yesterday. I'm not going to type out a description, and I'm going to finish this off. I just added a case into the system. Now, you may not know this. I'm going to go back to the main screen. You may not have recognized a moment ago, but the number of cases in the system was 18. It's now 19. Every time you hit that home page, it's updating your stats to let you know this is your snapshot, as Joe just talked about. Okay? So I've done that. Now let's go in and let's add an item very quickly. I just want you to see the currency being entered. Now, what's the name of my, or what's my case number? IAPE 1234. What's the description? Let's go with something that's really going to stand out. I'm going to go with $100,000 in cash. Okay, it was recovered at, let's go ahead and put this in. Now, while I'm typing, just to throw this out, this is something typically your officer's going to do. If your officers are not logging in and entering your own evidence, then what that typically tells me is they're probably writing it on paper, turning it over to somebody that is doing it. That is the #1 killer of time, okay? It takes so much time to handwrite things out. Every department using our software, their officers are logging in and doing it themselves. And you might be saying, oh my goodness, my guys are knuckleheads. They can never get this stuff, all right? They'll figure it out. It's a pretty easy system to operate. I'm also going to put in here that Joe Lotta recovered the item. The category is currency, and the reason I select currency is about to become very important. What is the location? So I'm going to put this item into a temp locker. Let me see here, actually. I don't have temp lockers in there right now. I'm going to put it in my safe. Recovery date yesterday, and they're just going and filling this out. I don't have a make, model, and serial number on my money, so let's go with that for right now. Now here's what's important. When I click next, it's going to ask me, what type of currency are you tracking? Okay, our software will be used on a worldwide level. So is there just American currency in the world? No, there's pesos, there's rubles, there's everything else under the sun. So the first thing I do, I selected is U.S. currency. That's the default option. And I'm going to put in $100,000 right there. And now I'm going to go ahead and submit this item. Now what do we expect to see when I go back to the main menu? How much money is going to be sitting in my room right now? Okay? $111,525 sitting in my room right now. As you check that money in or out or dispose of it or do anything else with it, it will begin to modify these stats. Now, what if you were to say, hey, that Joe Lotta guy, I got to keep an eye on him. He screws everything up in the software. What I'm going to do is I'm going to track him very specifically. So I'm going to go in and build a new widget, all right, and it dumps it down here at the bottom. This is one of the nice cool things about some sort of a dashboard. Not only do I want to track Joe, I want that to be the first thing that pops up every time I log into this system. So I'm going to call this the Joe Lotta widget. So now I've built that widget. Now you'll notice there's no stats in it, correct? Okay? Here's how you build stats. You go in and you search for data, you build a search and you save it, and you stick that search on the main screen. So I go in here, I'm going to go in and call this thing, oh I'm sorry, I got to build my search first. This is my item-based search. This stuff's pretty simple going in and doing a search. Here's all the fields you can search. I said I want to see everything recovered by Joe Lotta, correct? If you wanted everything recovered by Joe Lotta in the last 30 days, maybe that's a different element on your widget. I want to see everything he's put in the last 30 days, all currency he's put in. You can pretty much come up with any scenario under the sun and you can stick it on your widget so that you can come back and see it. So I'm going to go in here, let me run this search and see how many results I get. There are 3. So I'm going to go ahead and save this real quick. Let's go back here, I'm going to save this widget. I'm going to call this Joe Last 30 days. And I did not specifically select currency when I did that. You could have easily done that. In fact, let's go ahead and add one more just to show it to you on there. I'm going to go with, I just want stuff that's Joe Lotta, that is currency in the last 30 days. So I'm going to save this one also, Joe Lotta, last 30 days, currency. Now some of you are going to be like, I don't want to build all those searches. That looks like that's going to be a lot of work. Let me show you something else I can do here in a minute. So now that I've built those searches, I'm simply going to add that element into my widget. So Joe Lotta, last 30 days. So this will be the first one. Here's all my searches. Joe, last 30 days. I want it to count it. You can do averages on the money. What is the average of all the money Joe brings in? Not that that's really relevant, but I'm just pointing out something you could do. So now I've added that element. So now it's going to save, it's going to bring up that information on the screen. I can tell you right now, Joe Lotta in the last 30 days has submitted 3 items. I can go in and add the other element, Joe Lotta currency. I'm typing fast, so it's probably not spelled right or appropriately capitalized. I'm going to do this. I can tell you now that I'm doing the new one in the last 30 days, how much of the stuff Joe's brought in as currency. It's 1 item. So now what we'll do over time is we will build widgets up to where you can just go in and say, man, I really like that gun statistics widget. I want that to show up on my screen. So in reality, you may not even have to go in and build any of them. These widgets may be a part of a pool. I want Joe to put together a list for me, and I'm going to have one called the IAPE widget. Joe doesn't, I haven't even asked Joe for this, but I want Joe to give me a list of everything you'd be required to provide if he showed up in an inventory. So when he calls you up and says, I'll be there in a week, you don't have to go start digging for all that. Just add the widget called the IAPE widget, and it's already got the 100 different statistics that are most important to Joe when he walks in the door. Okay? We may very well get into it where people build widgets they can share them with other agencies. Okay, that may be down the road. But the point about this being right here, you don't have this in your current product. I don't believe. I've never seen anything like this. My old product didn't have it. You could go track it down, but it didn't give you things like this where you could build and manipulate what you're seeing. That's typically one of the #1 problems with people for evidence, is I can't even get relevant information to know what crap I need to get rid of. I don't know what's coming in the last 30 days. Holy cow, I can't go to the chief and tell you what came in the last year. I don't know what I've got. Okay? Lack of information is typically the #1 thing that causes that. Okay? In today's browser-designed systems like this, you get widgets and you get dashboards and things like this. That should be very different than what you're seeing today. Okay? Now here's the next step to all of this. Now let me show you where this is about to go. Because as I mentioned just a little bit ago, everybody right now operates in their own silo. And what I mean by that, and I'll pick, let me see right here, Colorado Bureau of Investigation. Okay? If they're working on a case, and probably they receive evidence from a lot of other people, right? You don't generate your own evidence. Great, okay? They receive evidence from everybody else. So I don't know their process at all, but let me take a shot at guessing what this looks like. Department, let's go down the line here. Somebody else, Loveland. Well, I don't know if Loveland works with them. We'll just pretend that Loveland works with them for right now. So Loveland has some evidence that needs to go to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. I'm guessing that Loveland will either handwrite a piece of paper or be forced to log into whatever software their system they're using to enter that evidence. Was it the paper part or was it the paper? Oh, I hate paper. Okay. What if Loveland could enter that evidence into their own tracker system, check it out, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, who's also using tracker, and they simply check it in because the barcode that comes with them has a 2D barcode on it. What if chain of custody showed that it started at Loveland, it got checked out, it got checked in the Colorado Bureau, they checked out to the lab and everything else, and when Loveland looks at that item in the end, it's not just my chain of custody in my building, it now shows all the steps that it took coming back around to her. We're talking full chain of custody from beginning to end. Okay? Here's how this is going to work. I'm going to log out of this and I'm going to log in as Captain Kyle. He's one of our users in Omaha. So I'm going to log in as Captain Kyle here. Okay. So now when I log into Captain Kyle, up here in the top right-hand corner, that drop-down menu that you just saw up there says Omaha Police Department. Does everybody agree? It does not say any other agencies that are in the system. All we see is Omaha. Great. That's where he's operating at. So let's just say I'm Captain Kyle. I want to bring up a case that I have in the system. Let's do a search for a case. Actually, that's the one that I built the IAPE in. Let's see if I got a test one in here. There we go. IAPE test case. That's another one that I entered. Okay? So I go in there and I bring up this case. Let me just show you the side note while I was in here. Media. I told you earlier we were going to do media. Within our software, media is extremely easy to add. All you do is whatever media you got. So like for example, I've got a whole list of media right here. I'm going to take all of this stuff and I'm just going to, oh, I got to get the media section out here. Hold on 1 second. There we go. You just take all that media, drag it right into the system, okay? Keeping your digital media side by side with all your physical evidence, that may not sound important. That is going to become very important, especially if you ever have other people logging into your system. So, as an example, as I mentioned earlier, what if all your attorneys, all the law people that you deal with, what if they could just log in and view all of this stuff on their own? They didn't have to log into a different system. I mean, that right there, would that change anybody's world if other people you work with could see your stuff? Now, an important caveat to that is you have to grant them permission to see it. They don't just get to see it, okay? So I just drug all that stuff on the screen. Let me see, I've got an MP4 file here. In fact, let me go up. I want to show you this MP4 file. This is pretty cool. I'm going to view this MP4. If you want to know the #1 difference between me and my nearest competitor, the biggest one that's out on the West Coast, they sell these things as their latest and greatest technology. We're actually buying them back from clients because they're so old, they're horrible. So this client said sending it back, they set it on fire, put it in the jaws of life and send us a video on it. Okay? We're burning those things, they're selling them as the latest and greatest technology. Okay? If you have a PDA device or if somebody's telling you that that PDA right there is the latest and greatest thing, okay, that's 20 years old. That's really, really old stuff. We do apps. I do iPhones. I like iPads. I like newer technology. Not that, okay? Because you already have an iPhone. You already have an Android device, okay? So that's just something, this system does all your physical and all your evidence right there. So let's go back to this case, all right? I'm going to now log in as a different user. I'm going to log in as my guy from Detroit. So now I'm logging in. These are not real systems. This is just all test data. This is my Detroit guy. Detroit's one of our bigger clients too. Okay? And you will admit, up there at the top of that screen, you do not see Omaha Police Department. You now see Detroit. Okay? So Detroit is going to allow Captain Kyle from Omaha to log in and view his data. They've made the decision. I'm working with him. I do want Captain Kyle to be able to log in, and he's a read-only user. I'll show you how we make him a read-only user. So I'm going to go up here. We're going to do this real fast. I just want you to see what the end result of it is. I'm going to go into my security area. Actually, I only have power users. I don't have it as a read-only user yet. So I'm going to go in, and I'm going to invite a Kyle at trackerproducts.com. That's not really his email. I'm going to add him in. He's now been made a power user. So a minute ago, you agreed under Omaha. I only saw Omaha. But now that he has been granted power user permissions under Detroit, now I'm going to log back in as Adam Kyle. And if all goes splendidly well, I will now see not only Omaha, but I will see Detroit. He was made a power user in that system. I'm not expecting that you're going to make other departments power users in your system. Most likely you're going to make them read-only users. But what that will allow that law clerk to do is log in and view your evidence. But not only that, in the case of Omaha, it's not just the law clerks viewing Omaha data. Douglas County is about to go on board with this. and then the attorneys are about to go on board with this. So all 4 of them, Captain Kyle will give read-only access to all these other agencies, and they can go in, evidence can move one to the other. You've got chain of custody from beginning to end. You can allow people to just be read-only if you want. This is taking evidence to a much larger perspective. So here I believe is the biggest difference going forward about evidence. Up until this point, you could have operated in your own silo and it wouldn't have mattered. It only mattered to you. It may have mattered to your chief, but it sure didn't matter to the police chief down the road what you were doing in your evidence room because you never had any ability to communicate with them with evidence. Now, you have that ability. So you may say, man, I really love my put in whatever system you're using, but when everybody around you, including the federal agencies, are using Tracker and they're looking at you like, why can't I see your evidence? Okay, I can see every other department around you. I can log in, they've given me permission. I can't see yours. Okay? And you may say, sorry, I don't care. But when everybody else around you is putting that pressure on you to do something like this, it's because it opens it up. All right? We don't live in a world where it's our own silo anymore. Evidence moving around from agency to agency is something that happens today. You may say, I hate the sound of this. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This just sounds so complicated. And why are you technical people always making things tougher? Okay? Every system that's being built out there today is going cloud-based. They're going larger like this. Justice Tracks in the LIMS world, they're going to a browser-based application. I don't know that they're going to a sharing mechanism like this, but they're going that way. Your RMS vendors are going that way. Everything is going in this direction where people can communicate on a much larger level. Okay? This is the first system that's going to allow that to even be possible. Okay? It has to be cloud-based. It has to be built in such a way that agencies can work with each other. So now I'm logged back in Captain Kyle. He did not have access to Detroit a little bit ago. I'm going to bring up a case from inside of Detroit. There's my case. I can see all of my items, all of my media, all of my notes, all my people. Captain Kyle has been granted access to Detroit's data. Now, if down the road you're ever concerned about, oh my goodness, who has access to this case right here, you can always bring up the permissions tab and you can see how many agencies can view this case inside of here. Okay, now this may seem far-fetched, but Omaha, by June, will be operating on this with the Sheriff's Office, the Omaha PD, the court, and the county. They're all ready to go on board. In fact, that's the reason I went to Omaha first. They were the first to see this 5 days ago. Nobody has seen it prior than that. This is the first time it's been available to actually show something. Okay? In June, they're going that way. Now, what do you think is going to happen when Omaha and the Sheriff's Office and the court and everybody else are operating this? What about that other agency in Omaha that's not operating this way? The court is probably going to tell them, you have got to get on board with this because we're not going to take your evidence anymore unless you've already entered it into the software. Now, you do not have to buy Tracker to do that. You can log into their system and add your own evidence, but you don't get the benefit of everything else. Okay? Tracker does inventories. It does auditing. All those things I said earlier, probably every vendor out there does it. This is the difference maker. So I guess the reason I'm showing this off today is so you guys have some sort of an inkling as to what's coming down the road, because I believe within the next year you're going to start hearing maybe from your court, because we're going to be pitching this to the court and saying, hey, if you get everybody on board with this, the courts don't have to accept evidence anymore that's not already been entered. As a matter of fact, Colorado Bureau of Investigation may not even have to take paper anymore because every one of their agencies is already doing that. I think this is a half step away from you could allow a governing body at the state level to search your evidence and coordinate it. Could you guys imagine for just a minute if the state of Colorado had the ability to click a button and see how many firearms were collected all over the state of Colorado? Now, is that a little ways down the road? Sure, I would suggest that. But I do think that that day is coming. This is the system that is going to make that possible. Okay? So a couple of questions. I want to give you plenty of time for questions. What am I sitting out on time, Joe? You're not about the allotment, are you?
Another 10.
Oh, I got another 10,
5.
15. So let's do this. Let me throw a couple of things out sort of just to grease the wheels, because I know you guys have questions. I'm going to give you your first 4 questions, and then you can ask all your questions after that. Okay, so number 1, what's the cost of this thing? Okay? Omaha Police Department is one of our largest clients. The way we license our product is based on concurrent connectivity. How many people are logging into your organization at one moment in time? So they have 20 concurrent licenses. They've got 1,200 people logging in, but they've got 20 concurrent licenses, and that handles them very well. They're spending $22,000 a year for the cloud model of our product, the whole thing. Now, you're not going to spend $22,000 because I know nobody in here has 600 officers like what they have and 1,200 users. Let me go down in size. If you had 5 concurrent connections, you're looking at a quarter of that cost. You're looking at $5,000 a year. Now, for those of you that have bought evidence tracking software, maybe even recently or not so recently, you're going to hear numbers like $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to implement evidence tracking into your building. The beauty behind cloud-based applications is it keeps the cost down. It's beneficial for your agency also because you don't have to have all the internal manpower to keep up with that server running that software in that building. So your overall cost is going down, okay? But you can write this down. This is the number, $1,200 per concurrent connection. That's what it's going to cost. And so now we just need to work with you to figure out how many people are going to log in, how many officers are you going to have. And just so you know, we're coming out with an iPad app so that you can do offline entry at a crime scene, and we're going to give that away for free. Now, you're not getting it for free because is that going to up your concurrent connectivity and the number of people logging in? Absolutely. My job in this world is to give you more reasons to have more people logging in. But here's what does not cost you. If the agency next door also has Tracker and they're logging in and you're getting evidence from them, when they're browsing your evidence, that does not go against your licensing at all. They've got their own licensing. So this ability to communicate with other people, there is no cost to that. You just have to be in Tracker to do it. That makes sense to everybody? That is the cost. Now, there is one additional sideline cost, storage space for digital video. If you're uploading lots and lots of digital video, there would be a cost for that. But I'm telling you right now, go out and price a digital evidence tracking system. That $20,000, $30,000 I just threw out a little while ago for evidence, make that $70,000, $80,000, $90,000. If you've ever gone out and priced out a digital evidence, they're extraordinarily expensive. So you may not like the idea of paying to host data out in the cloud, but again, long term, when you compare apples to apples, it is going to be less money. Okay? Data import. There's no cost to importing your data into this system. If you're using any one of our competitor systems, there's no cost to importing the data into this product. We want you into the product. I don't want that to be a hurdle for you to get into the software. We will import whatever data you have right now for free. Now, if you're using one of the major competitors out there, it's a whole lot easier because now I know what the format of the data looks like. Okay? For those of you that are not using one of the major competitors out there, we may have to work with you to get the data in a particular format, but there will not be a cost to importing the data into the software. Okay? Next question. What about integrating with RMS or other systems? Okay? Kirsten was telling me just a little bit ago, we're looking at an RMS application. And one of their requirements is that the RMS, it has to communicate with the lab system that they just bought. Okay? The number one thing, and this is what I submitted to her, the number one thing you're interested in that vendor saying before you buy their product, is their product built on a web services platform? If they say yes, it is built on top of a web services platform, then that means it's going to more easily integrate with other systems that are built on that platform. I'll tell you right now that whatever evidence desktop system you're running in your property room, I'm going to guess that's not built on a web services platform, and it's not going to integrate with anything, no matter how much they tell you it's going to. Because it's very easy to sit up here and say, oh yeah, we integrate with everybody, until it becomes time to actually integrate, and then all of a sudden you find out how painful that is and how bad it is. Okay? So let's do this. Questions you might have. I've cut it off a little bit early. I know I went fast, guys. I'm sorry. I talk fast. I'm obviously passionate about this. I go very, very fast when I'm talking. What questions do you have? Something that I didn't cover, something that's like, man, what are you doing there? Anybody? Okay, let's make it really easy. How was lunch? Was lunch okay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yes, question.
Our IT department has a huge fixation with the fact that they think their crap is so secure. And
Sure.
we're waiting on the ability for our pre-log box people because they just need to build a simple firewall. That's taken 5 years.
Yep.
So,
And that's something easy to do, by the way.
so and our stuff's housed on our server in-house.
Yes.
Because they think it's so secure. So
Yep.
what do we tell them about this when they go, oh, there's no freaking way?
Well, the first thing I would always ask an IT person is, where is your email located? Tell me how you're doing email. If they tell you I'm using Google Apps or I'm using Office 365, they've already given you the answer. Oh, so wait a minute, you got that outside your building. Okay? We have hundreds and hundreds of agencies. Most IT people don't balk at this. There are some that do, but they're going to lose that battle in the long run. Okay? Everything is going to the cloud model. Now, I don't want to be lax. They're going to come back and ask us some very hard questions. Great, you're throwing out this thing. What are your certifications? We're going through a FedRAMP certification right now, which is sort of the federal government gold stamp. And I would never use the federal government as a gold stamp for anything. But in this case, I will tell you that their security compliance, when it comes to cloud apps like us, it's a really thick piece. So they're probably going to want to do their investigation, but there's not a lot of departments that still hold on to, I'm not moving it out, because the one thing they will realize, wait a minute, that's out there, they're never going to call me again unless the internet's down. I like that idea. And then if something's wrong, who are you going to call? You don't have to call the IT people anymore unless your internet's down. If there's a problem with the application, you call us. And that's sort of the beauty behind that. You don't have to worry about the backups, you don't have to worry about the security or anything else. That is our business to do that. So I would throw it out to them and let's have a discussion about it, and they may pitch a fit. They may even say no, but they're going to lose that battle in the long run because everything's going that way. And I do ask them about the email. That's usually, I had a guy in St. Louis that wanted to get in a fight, an IT guy. He wanted to argue with me. I said, where's your email at? He goes, okay, you're right. Because he was using Google Apps. I was like, you're going to put that out on the cloud, but you know, my evidence information can't be there to share with other agencies. So, yes?
So what about tying this software in? I mean, obviously this isn't in your best interest, but what about tying this software into other third-party applications? Say a department doesn't buy your software.
Sure.
Are you okay with that software tying in with yours?
What I would say is, yes, I am open to that because of the web services platform. You're still going to pay for it because now you've got connectivity to the system. There will be a cost. You'll still get the current connectivity, but it'll be registered a different way. The problem is when you see what this does, depending on what that other system is, the one that I understand, there's in fact Douglas County in Omaha. They're one of the 4 people that are in the group. The sheriff's office does not want their officers logging into this product. They want them logging into their RMS. Right. I said, I got no problems. We can do it that way, but here's what the problem is. Look at your RMS, and it's Motorola, by the way. Of all the RMS vendors to talk to, it's Motorola. So I asked them, what is your experience with dealing with them when you need something modified? So let's just say your evidence tracking application tomorrow collects a new piece of data. And now your officers can't answer that question because you've got to go back to Motorola to get that put into there. How long does it take Motorola to do anything, and at what cost? So typically, and so what Douglas County settled on, which was great, the RMS case in person will push into our product, no problem. The evidence will be entered into here, and they'll drag it back out into their RMS so that they still get all the RMS data in there, because typically RMS collects 5, 6 pieces of data about the evidence. Our software, you may set it up to have 20 or 30 pieces of data. So that's the way I always suggest go that way. But if you do want your RMS to push into Tracker, just keep in mind, somebody, probably you, has got to log in and edit all that information and get it updated with everything you need, and that's never good. So, but that is an option. Joe, what? Hey, I got 5 minutes left.
No.
4 minutes.
I got to start at 1.
Okay, one last question? Anybody?
I said we started at 5 after 1.
You
Oh,
He
okay.
did.
Yeah.
He did. Thank you
Well,
for
I'm
pointing
giving
that
everybody
out.
potty break time.
No, well, we will, just so you know, guys, we will be sending you an email within the next 30 days just so you can get more information on this. This is not available till June, so you can't even go back and play with it right now. Today was to let you know what's coming, giving you a look at it. But when you get our email, you can certainly go to the website, check it out. You can sign up for a demo, do whatever you want. If you're really interested in it and you want us to talk to a group in your area, like if you bring all the attorneys in, and that's what Omaha did. They brought everybody in a room, we sat down, pitched them on this, and they love the idea because they can't do it outside of this. So thank you for your time, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be hanging around here for just a little bit if you need anything else. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Joe, let's get you all back up. Too fast. What about the dashboard? Yes. Yes. Well, I have the ability to do that now. The old time, I didn't have that ability to just say, Joe, what do you want? I'll put them on there. I haven't seen his in such a long time. I'm not sure what he does with it. Here's this back. Let me get you let's make sure you're all back and running before I take off. Are you up on the, hold on.